No peace! No peace! No peace!
For years, it's been a familiar rallying cry after scenes of police brutality and deaths in police custody in the US. But with the killing of George Floyd, an unarmed black man who died after a police officer kneeled on his neck for 9 minutes, another slogan has come into focus.
When I say defund, you say police, defund! Defund!
Thousands of protesters are now calling for money to be taken away from police budgets, and some even want to get rid of the police entirely.
Our commitment is to end our city's toxic relationship with the Minneapolis Police Department, to end policing as we know it.
But what does that actually mean? And can society run without an active police force keeping things in check? Domestic abuse, mental health,
You're pushing the brake by who?
and drug abuse. These are the sorts of problems that law enforcement are regularly called to deal with.
This is crazy. My man can't get up right now.
And the police use up a lot of taxpayer money.
My man is like out of it.
So what are the alternatives? One idea is to take money away from the police and redirect it into local communities. That means less money for the police and more money for things like healthcare, housing, and mental health provisions. Supporters say the more you put into communities, the less you need to police them. This wouldn't mean taking away all the money that goes into the police, but it would mean more money going directly into the communities that are most policed.
Using policing to respond to all of our problems has become very normalized. And so to the point where we can't even imagine how else one would deal with the situation.
When we say defunded, we mean the funds we use to pay for our citizens to be over-policed. We need to shift those funds to affordable housing, to early childhood education, things that actually contribute to public safety.
Many calling for reform want to integrate the way the police and social services work. Dallas has reduced arrests in certain areas by sending a social worker and a paramedic along with police officers who respond to mental health calls. The city now has fewer patients in hospital emergency rooms. Not all activists agree on what defunding means. Some simply want to take money from police and put it into the community. Some want to dismantle broken police forces and replace them with more accountable officers. And some want to abolish the police altogether. Camden in New Jersey was once listed the most dangerous city in the US. In 2013, the city overhauled its police force and hired hundreds more officers who were trained to introduce themselves to residents in person by knocking on doors.
They can't even see
And they
you.
have the best police department in the world.
Oh, thank you, ma'am.
The murder rate has now gone down by 95% over the last 7 years. Some residents would still like to see more black officers, but the city has come a long way.
I think it's fair to ask ourselves, is the model we're working with the right one? So look, I'm not called for dismantling or defunding. What I will say is the people who call for it are making a valid case for serious transformation as to how we deliver safety and security. They're not talking about leaving people on their own.
It ain't about ourselves, bro.
Over the past 4 decades, the cost of policing has tripled to $122 billion after inflation, and it continues to rise, while prisons cost about $96 billion a year. Contrast that with national funding for substance abuse and mental health programs, which is just $5.7 billion a year. President Trump has rejected protesters' calls for defunding or disbanding, branding himself the law and order president and reducing the problems in US police forces to a few bad apples.
They want to get rid of the police forces. They actually want to get rid of it. We have to go the opposite way. We must invest more energy and resources in police training. We have to respect our police. We have to take care of our police.
High-profile Democrats have also distanced themselves from the more radical calls for disbanding, while proposing sweeping changes.
This is an inflection moment in American history, a moment where we must make substantive changes now. Changes the American police is long overdue.
Campaign group 8 Can't Wait has recently published 8 recommendations for reforming the police. They would require officers to warn people before shooting, banning shooting at moving vehicles, and officers would have to report each time they point a gun at a citizen.
I'm not sure about the abolishing the police. We do need protection. My thing is if we can weed out the bad and bring in the good, then I'd prefer that.
I'm not sure that that's even the right strategy. I think it could cost more to police properly than it costs to police improperly.
US police forces have been accused of brutality and racism for years, and there has been outrage and anger each time another black person has died in police custody. But George Floyd's death marks a turning point. 57% of Americans now think the police are more likely to use excessive force on black people. That's compared to just 34% in 2016. In the wake of George Floyd's death, 11 cities have banned chokeholds, and more have promised change. But will it be dramatic enough for those demanding reform? Many people who saw George Floyd's death think holding a small number of officers accountable is not enough.
What do we want? When do we want it?
They want lasting change to come of it.